Hi, this is George from Concept Music. Today I'm just going to be going through a few pedals that are commonly used. I'm going to be talking about Overdrive and Fuzz and some other more wacky effects that can be used to explore recording and explore some tones. With COVID, there's been lots of time to kind of stay at home and experiment with new tones rather than doing heaps and heaps of gigging. So yeah, going to be going through that. So a question that we often get asked in the store is the difference between Overdrive, Fuzz and Distortion. And you do want to pick the pedal that suits your tone the best. So I kind of see the pedals as being on a spectrum in terms of how heavy the tone is. So Overdrive is like the least heaviest drive out of the three pedals. And then when we get down to Fuzz, it's really kind of, you're getting to the face melting sort of ultra heavy territory. So yeah, just a quick difference between them, for example, is this is Fuzz. So that's getting to the really sort of heavy end of town. And then you can notice with Overdrive, it's just a bit more of a subtle sort of sustain and not quite the same crunch to it. So that would be more commonly noticed in like earlier blues music. And what it does is emulates the sound of a cranked amp. So all of Fuzz and Overdrive and Distortion, they're different ways of emulating what a cranked amp sounds like. So Fuzz is what a tube amp would sound like on 10 volume everything, just blaring as loud as possible. And what the pedal allows us to do is we can play through amps at a lower volume but still get the sound tone of an amp being completely cranked. And an Overdrive is more the sound of an amp turned maybe down to 8. The speaker's still going hard and clipping a little bit, but it's not the same sort of ear-tearing tone as the Fuzz. And the Distortion is sort of like a middle point between the two. So here's a bit of a distortion tone here. So just talking about a few differences between Fuzz and Overdrive. Fuzz, for example, is more used in like very heavy music. It was almost like first made popular by Jimi Hendrix, for example, and you can really notice it's got that very distinctive tone that's so heavy. Yeah, and you can also tell that when you start using a Fuzz pedal, it definitely kind of leads you to play in a different way as compared to Overdrive. Like, it's got so much sustain that you almost don't have to pick the notes too hard to get the tone coming through. And then Overdrive, you can just hear it hasn't got that same level of sustain, and it's still got that gain tone to it, but it's so I'm just going to make a quick comparison between the clean guitar tone and Overdrive. So this is clean. And then with the Overdrive on. can really start to hear that dirt coming out. The thing about overdrive that's interesting is when you start to dig into the notes a bit more, the bite comes through more. So if I play gently into it, it's kind of, you're getting close to the original clean tone. But then when I start to dig in a bit more, you can really hear it starts to come out through the amp. So the peaks really get accentuated there. And like gain, for example, can be used during your playing. So here we go. This is with the gain turned down low. And you can hear it increase. So and you can almost notice that where that ends, this is probably where Fuzz would start. Here. And then if we keep going from there, you're really getting into the super loud, distorted territory. So where one almost ends, Fuzz begins, is a simple way of looking at it. So I'm just going to discuss now a bit about distortion and where that sits in the spectrum in between overdrive and fuzz. So it's a good middle point between the two. And I'll give you a little example of the tone of it. At the moment I'm playing through an Acapulco Gold, which is one of the Earthquaker devices. And yeah, the interesting feature of this pedal is it just has one knob on it. So where most pedals have kind of a few, this just has one that controls the volume of the pedal, and the gain also increases as it increases because the amp is more cranked. So here we go. Yeah, distortion is a very popular pedal in rock and psychedelic music, and it's often the pedal that people lean towards first when they're getting into playing more rock music, because it's pretty much essential for playing heavier styles of music and getting that iconic distorted tone that is popular and that we love. Now that we've talked about overdrive, distortion and fuzz, I want to get a bit into some other effects that help tie these tones in. So I'm going to give a little demonstration of the Astral Destiny Earthquaker pedal, which is reverb, and it's unique in that it's got its own shimmer tone, and yeah, I think the best way of explaining it is just by playing it. Yeah, so these are the sort of effects that are unique and that can make your tone kind of different and interesting, especially when playing, recording, or trying to chase a unique or different sound live. So yeah, it's got some interesting features like the activate button, which stretches the tone of the sound. Sorry, the stretch button there. So you can hear the pitch of the overtones rising and then falling as you press the button. Cool. And so when we combine it with other pedals, here we go. So this is combined with the Acapulco Gold. So with those two together, it's almost, you get a bit of a, I don't know if anyone's seen Blade Runner, but you get a sort of ambient feeling to it that's also quite unique. So combining lots of different pedals can be fun in that you can really explore the tone that's different and that you're looking for. So we've talked about overdrive and fuzz being on a bit of a spectrum. It's also important to note how pedals make you lean towards different styles of playing. So with fuzz, because it's so overdriven and so heavy, when you play, it kind of more, for me, feels like you should play lead lines. Because when you kind of hit the full chord, there's so many overtones and it's so heavy that the actual note of the chord can be a bit lost in like the crunch of it. Like, some people ultimately love that tone and they love that kind of feeling where it's just so heavy. But also you can definitely hear the individual notes a bit better when it's just the full drive. It's a bit of a kind of warmer, maybe less ear-destroying way of playing chords through the overdrive. And it is important to note that although you can talk a lot about them, they're like, players use them in different ways and like them in different ways, so it's not set in stone how we interpret pedals. It is important to note that pedals are subjective, and what some people might think is a beautiful tone, others would disagree. So it's, you know, it's kind of up to what you like and what you think sounds good and what works in the band or what works for you individually playing at home. And a good way of gauging that would be to come into the store. You're welcome, of course, to try out any of the pedals, give them a go, because when you really hear them in person is when you can kind of fully gauge what you like and what you want for your sound.